Hi, everyone. Bonjour à tous, and welcome to the Canada School of Public Service. My name is Leslie Chung. I'm a senior advisor at the Treasury Board in Open Government on an outreach and engagement team. I'm pleased to be here today. Thank you for being in the room, and thank you for everyone joining online. I'm pleased to introduce today's event entitled Open Government, Success Stories and Lessons Learned. Au nom de l'école, j'aimerais souhaiter le bienvenue à tous les participants en place et en ligne. For participants joining on YouTube and on site, please submit your questions via slido.com. I think there's a slide that maybe you should be able to see. Our code is #OpenGov2019. You can submit your questions at any time during the event, en français ou en anglais, and as well as you can vote on some of the best questions, and we'll ask some of those during our question period at the end. At the end of the tent, we'll also have, we'll have about 20 minutes at the end for questions. We can ask here on site by the microphone, or as I said, by a Slido. So the public school would like me to introduce, they're using a new evaluation tool today. So it will make your views accessible to them faster and in real time, and you'll be able to quickly access the evaluation on your phone. So we'll have about 5 minutes at the end of the session. Our session today is an hour and a half. We're gonna have 5 minutes at the end and to do a very quick evaluation. And it's new and in the early stages, so they're just piloting it, so be patient if it doesn't work right away. I hope it will. And some of you in person already loaded it on your phones during registration or when you arrived, but we also have a QR code for you to scan that I believe is up on the screen, as well as there's a photocopy if for some reason that's not working. So if you have an iPhone, you should be able to scan that really quickly, and if it is an Android, I heard you have to enter in this, enter in this URL. Okay, so where am I today? Pardon me. Yes, I've lost myself. Hi guys, sorry, I'm here again. So we're here to talk about open government success stories and lessons learned. And so just in general, for those who are new to open government is a global movement designed to promote transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in global policy and processes. And so Canada is celebrating this year. We're a leader in open government. This 2018, we were ranked #1 globally on the Open Data Barometer, as well as we assumed the co-chair of the Open Government Partnership, the OGP, last October, and we hosted the OGP Global Summit here in Ottawa at the Shaw Centre just down the street, where we invited 25, well, I think we invited many, many more, but about 25,000 participants from 115 countries came to Ottawa to discuss open government and Canada's priorities, which were participation, impact, and inclusion. And we had, we had over 22 side events, 95 sessions, core sessions, in addition to 5 plenary sessions. The Prime Minister was there. We had a number of ministers as well from Canada as well as globally, and it was a really great success. I believe everyone on the panel was there, so they're going to be able to talk about some of their experiences as well as some of the work that they did there. All to say, I'm sorry if you missed it, but that all our videos are online. So this panel is exploring the evolution of open government in Canada. So as I said, we are a leader, but we didn't start as a leader, and so there's been struggles along the way. There's been things that we've learned, and we really want to share those today. So we really want to focus on how departments, we have representation from 4 departments here, have realized these opportunities and opened up their own government programs, as well as contributing to success for Canada as a whole. So we'll be talking a little bit about the challenges that departments have overcome in their implementation of these programs and policies, as well as we really want to focus on those practical ways that open government can happen in the Government of Canada, as well as and provide some possible solutions for those trying to do this in their own departments, or as we go forward in the open government movement, as well as to give some advice to how people who are not public servants, because I believe everyone in the room is going to be a public servant, but folks online the session is open to the public, and so how folks across Canada and across the world can participate in open government in Canada. So I want to introduce our panel first. we are not sitting in the order that I have them listed, but I will try and rearrange this. So just right here, we have Mohammed Friendly, the Director of Research Development and Analytics at ICID, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. And I just have a short bio to read. So Mohammed is the IT Director of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada and responsible for the Research, Development, and Analytics Directorate. In his current role, Mohammed oversees the successful delivery of workloads to the cloud, including leading the Government of Canada's API store as well as the analytics team. He has a master's in computer science and in project management and a PhD in cognitive sciences. And to the left, we have Karen Wallace, who is, the project lead for open government in the Department of Justice. And so Karen is, before taking on this role, she was Chief of Operations in Justice Canada, Justice Canada's Access to Information and Privacy Office, and she has over 15 years of experience in ATIP and training, and has supported her current role as the lead for open government. Further left, we have Mark Irvin from, Public Service Commission. So he's the lead for open government in data analytics and data services and analysis. So in his current role, he's responsible for the strategic direction of open government initiatives at the Public Service Commission. And Mark is directly responsible for the development and delivery of PSC's Open Government Implementation Plan, its Open Government Engagement Plan, as well as all of their open data initiatives. So Mark has been leading the PSC Open Government Secretariat since 2017. And as we move further down, we have Craig Clooney, the Director of Results-Based Management Division, Office of Strategic Policy and Planning at the Public Health Agency of Canada, or is it FAC or PHAC?
FAC.
It's FAC. Okay, thank you. We have many discussions about this. Mm-hmm. So Craig is champion of open government for FAC. His day job as Director of Results-Based Management Division has him engaging with stakeholders daily to advance the government's results and delivery agenda, ensuring transparent and responsive reporting for Canadians. So now that everyone knows who our panel is, and I did introduce myself. Yes, I did. Sometimes I forget that. I really want to just jump in the panel. So I'm hoping not to talk that much. That is my plan. And I'm hoping that we'll have more of a conversation and that we can jump in. I have some guiding questions for us. But let's still get a little warmed up. So I have a couple quick fire questions, maybe like 20 seconds each. We'll run down the line and then run back on some of these. So you want to start over there? Okay. You're farther away, so you lose. So, as I mentioned,
20 seconds. I could be here for
no. We're going to do quick fire, and then we'll jump into the bigger discussion, just to get us warmed up. So, as I said, there are many ways that governments can be open or become more open. In Canada, we've designed our open government is designed to promote transparency, accountability, and citizen participation, as I said, and particularly in our policy and our processes, and we're moving forward in that. So that's what the larger sort of definition of open government is. And so I want to start with what does open government mean to you?
So as champion for FAC, I've been champion now for about 1.5 years. It's not my day job, but it's certainly something that means a lot to me. FAC, while it never had a great presence on the open government portal before I started to work, has often been out there and been out there for years with regards to its work. I think it really reflects the FAC mandate with regards to enabling Canadians to have access to data that's important for them to better manage their health. It's super simple for me. It just makes sense that we gather this data, we have this information, it's paid for by taxpayers. Why would it not be out there?
Great. Rapid fire.
Okay. So under 20 seconds. So I think open government for us, it provides us with the perfect opportunity to share more data and more information than we would otherwise have shared. Mm-hmm. So we have a number of strategic partnerships that we do, but we also consider our data very close and sensitive. We're dealing with staffing data, which is always sensitive. So this is an opportunity for us to dig through the organization and share things that we might not otherwise have shared. And so I think it's a really good sort of reason to sort of start to dig.
Great. Let's see how some of this lines up. Karen?
For me, it's just a new way for government to work with citizens. I think our citizens are more informed. They're complex thinkers. They have access to more technology, and I really think that government needs to step up and needs to change the way it interacts with citizens so that it remains relevant in their lives.
Great.
My turn.
Yes, we've come back full circle.
So to me, it's more a philosophical discussion. What happened through the centuries is that our ancestors were used to share information by default, like in the tribe, in the villages. Over time, as we grew up as cities and big individual society, we started becoming more siloed. All we're doing right now is going back a little bit to that model of work where we start opening our services, opening our data available to people, and the more brains think about something or about a problem, the better we're positioned to resolve that problem and share more and more knowledge over time.
So I heard a couple themes in this, and so a lot about it was like sharing data. So this is what Canada has been very good at sharing, or we've shared a lot of data, about 80,000 data sets on our portal right now. And then I also heard the other theme, which is really about engaging with citizens. So I think this is sort of where we're going to go today and talking about that. So I'm wondering if we can start with thinking about the data. So how have you guys shared data? So these all four of you, have talked about sharing data. And if you could just talk about your processes and how that has evolved within your departments, some of the challenges that you might have faced, as well as how those have been overcome. Do we want to, I'm happy for you guys to jump in as you wish.
Oh, you wanted to go, Mark? Yeah. All right,
Sure.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start. I think the way we look at sharing our data is that when I took over the open government file in 2017, we had a fairly easy strategy. We publish an annual report every year, and we published data associated with the annual report. Sort of easy, it was quick, we had it. It was sort of one of those quick wins that we could put on open government. And then from there, what we did is we created sort of a open data strategic plan every year and sort of started to circally expand what we're publishing every year. So we started with the annual report, and then we started to look at all our data holdings, and we evaluated our data holdings and what we could publish. And now we're starting to look beyond our data holdings. Can we go out and find where that hidden data is, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet in somebody's computer, or whether it's hidden in somewhere else in a team that's got a log or something. We're starting to sort of just try and continue and push through the organization and try and find out where all that data is, but come at it from a value perspective. So not just flood the market with as much data as we possibly can, but really to try and figure out what data would be valuable to people and put that out there. And so we have, in partnership with our open data plans, we have an engagement plan. So we're going out and asking people what they want to hear from us and what they want to see from us so that we can make it valuable to people and engage them in what they want to see from us so that we can look through and say, well, okay, this person over here said they want to see this. Okay, we have that there. Let's partner it with this and then pub it out so that people can actually use the data. There's no point in having, thousands and thousands and thousands of data sets out there if nobody's using it. Or even worse, if you have thousands of data sets and one valuable one, and nobody can find it because it's hidden among thousands of data sets, sort of the proverbial needle in a haystack. So that's sort of been our philosophy, and so we're systematically trying to work through what's valuable for Canadians, stakeholders, anybody that really is using our data.
Great. And so, just to build off of that, I'm wondering if, you can please talk about that as well, but in terms of, I know what both you and what Craig and Karen have done in terms of easing your publishing process, so that I'm sure that you guys will have a very similar story to Mark in terms of finding that valuable data, but how have you accelerated that publishing process?
I can speak a little bit to that, and I'm not going to take all the credit for it because it was really based on some discussions that I had with Karen earlier on when I became champion on the file, but not all that different than Mark. One of the things I did was it was really about numbers, to be frank with you. When we started at FAC, or when I became champion, we had 10 data sets on the open data portal, and that was all. We had absolutely nothing on the open information portal. So I got a call one Friday afternoon from the president who came down and said, hey, Craig, can you come down to my office? I need you to be champion for open government. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? And she said, well, you see this, we need to improve it. So it was fairly easy for me. It was about increasing the numbers. It was about increasing the awareness across the senior management cadre and my colleagues to let them know how important this initiative was, both internationally as well as a national level. But one of the things I ran into really quickly was we had lots and lots of information already out there. So it comes back to your point, Mark, around making sure the right stuff got there and how did we prioritize that. So given my day job of parliamentary reports and strategic policy, I had an idea of what we want to push out in terms of our priorities. Presumably we want to push it out because we also wanted the public to know about this. So this is the type of stuff and how we focused our work in terms of getting our numbers up, but also in what types of data sets we would put out initially. Quickly, though, I realized that from a data set perspective, from a public health agency, and given the complexity of the federal model with health care, that we didn't necessarily own all of our data. So that was a challenge for us. The provinces and territories owned it, or Stats Canada owned it, and we didn't necessarily have access to it, which was unbelievable from one federal department to another. So that's where I leaned into the idea about increasing our presence into the open information portal. I took information that was already in the public domain, quickly repackaged it, and we put it into the open information portal. So we went from 0 to 240 pieces of information now in the open information portal, and in the meantime we doubled down our efforts on the open data, and we've gone from 10 to I believe 26 or 27. Prioritizing it based upon some of the things that Mark had talked about and what we thought were items we need to push to the public. We haven't, unfortunately, reached the point where Mark has talked about engaging with the public to find out what they would like to know, but we have been working with our comms folks, and we know exactly what types of questions are coming in, so that's helped us as well shape some of our efforts and lean into where we think we might need to push our information and data.
Great. Do you want to expand on that, Karen?
Sure. Our experience was a little bit different just because I spent a lot of time at the beginning when I came over from the ATIP office in October 2016, actually trying to define what data was, right? I mean,
that's true.
Justice Canada, given our mandate, we would consider ourselves to be more an information or knowledge-rich institution. I would speak to people about data, and they would say, well, first of all, what is that? And then they would say, well, we don't have any. So there was this whole time where we had to educate and understand that data really is a subset of information. And when I defined it in that way, although I'm sure it's not 100% accurate, Mohammed's looking at me, please forgive me, but it was a way that our department could understand. The other thing about Justice Canada too, and this is a good thing, Justice Canada is a risk-aware institution. It's the nature of the work that we do. It's what we have to do. So when you're having conversations with folks who see their clients not as being the public, but as being other government institutions, and they're very risk-aware, and they don't think they have any data or information that, because of the nature of its sensitivity, could be released to the public, you're starting really pretty low on the hill. So there was an upward battle with regards to just awareness. And numbers are important, Craig, because that's how you convince people that A, you can do it, that you have something of value, and B, it feels good. Hey, we've done something, and the public is happy, and this is a good thing. So on top of the issue, when I actually did come across some information that would be of public interest, the next thing that people would say to me is, well, how do we get it on that portal? Like, how exactly does that happen? And so I thought, well, that's a darn good question. I should really know the answer to that. So I looked at the Open Government Registry, and I looked at the work that TBS had done in the portal. All great work, but I had no background in data or computer science or metadata. I was totally and absolutely lost, even after sitting with very kind, patient people from TBS who walked through the data dictionaries, the metadata. They went through everything. I still was lost. So I was thinking, how on earth am I going to get a very busy lawyer or policy analyst to buy into this? But I was very fortunate because in my new position, I had new friends. And my new friends happened to be librarians. And this is just a shout out to anybody who is a librarian or thinks, like, seriously, these are incredible people. These are smart people. They know so much about information, how to catalog it so that you can find it, how to describe it so people can use it and compare it. These are smart people. If you have librarians in your institution or you know a librarian, tap into them. And that's what I did. So we developed a process, and it was just supposed to be an electronic form process, but then our business apps folks took our forms and they actually made it into an application that is incredible. And we have 2 tracks, a fast track and a slow track. The fast track just directs people, just ask them, is it on our public-facing website? It is. Send us where it is, and the librarians are able to get the metadata they need from the public-facing website and to describe it in such a way that it can be used through the portal. It can be found, it can be used, it can be compared. The slow track we haven't trialed as much, but we will, and that is for information that isn't already in the public domain. So that will require additional approvals and additional information in order to be properly described. But for me, the lesson I learned is look around. If you don't understand something, ask. There's usually somebody in your department who can help you.
Can just, to finish off that thought, can you just talk about a little bit of the, like the considerations for the slow track that you'll be looking at?
So the considerations for the slow track are exactly the considerations that are in all the TBS guidance documents. So they're around privacy, they're around accessibility, around official languages, around the sensitivity of the information, whether the ownership of the information, licensing, it's all the exact same considerations that are in all of the information from TBS. We basically just took the guidance from TBS, streamlined it, made it a little bit more understandable for your employee, and the slow track prompts you, but it doesn't prompt you with the question, so it asks you to confirm. For instance, it asks you to confirm that there are no privacy concerns, and if you cannot do so, then you know, a pop-up comes up and suggests you seek guidance from the ATIP office. And you know, same with accessibility, but it directs you to the communications branch. So it's very simple, but it works.
I wonder if I could I want to say that that's like fantastic. It sounds so awesome and innovative. Just compared with ours is almost completely manual. We do, just to give everybody sort of in the room and listening, we do everything, you know, with a pickaxe and a shovel, right? I mean, we are doing everything manual. We are, you know, sending emails with data sets. We're converting them. Somebody is converting them. Some of them is not. We're signing sheets and having them signed off for approval. And so I think all that being said, like, you can do exactly what you're doing, and that's where we want to go. We want to try and automate as much as possible. But you can sort of release things to the open data portal, and you can get a program going, and you can do all that stuff going without feeling like you have to jump into the 22nd century because other people have done it. I think, like, I want to learn more, and I want to come over and steal it and put it in my place but I think that in the context of this discussion, it can also be done, just start doing it. You know, start putting things in place. Go to the TBS, start putting your process in place. We have an open data process that's on a Visio process map that we've shared on our GC Connects page, and if you want to know how we're doing it, here it is. Yep. And I'm sure everybody else has got the same. So for those organizations that are here because you're struggling, I think that there are, you know, 52 different ways to do it, and I think that just starting it is sort of the best way to start. You know what I mean? And everything about the request to release process at Justice Canada is also on a GC Connects page. So you just have to Google it, or you'll find it, and the contact information for our business apps folks is there as well. So it's agreed. Yeah.
So maybe just one quick consideration as we release more and more data. Non-sensitive data, and non-sensitive data, if compiled together, combined through some modern technologies such as predictive analytics and all these enhanced tools, can lead to something that is protected and sensitive. So as part of the privacy assessment, we should aim, and I'm not saying we should do it immediately, but we should aim more and more to do this cross-validation across different data sets before saying, yes, we're releasing this to the public. As long as, like, we want to make sure that we're not compromising the sensitivity of data and the privacy of our citizens.
Of public health, as I said before in the opening, with regards to we don't own all the data. Meanwhile, we give the grants and contributions to the provinces. They take the money from the federal government, and then they create the data and they provide it back, but they don't necessarily provide it to us for us to then use publicly. So one of the ways that I mentioned earlier that we got around this was, while we haven't necessarily increased our open data presence as much as I'd like in the open data portal. What I have been able to do is convince the subject matter experts to release it in the format of open information, which allows them to have the appropriate preambles around the embedded pieces of data. So it ends up in the open information portal rather than the open data portal. So it's not in a raw CSV format. It's actually probably in a Word format, or it's a metadata link or something like that that we've done. And then it allows the scientists, being a scientific department, to feel more comfortable about how their data will get used, rather than it just going there and someone probably piecing one piece with another and all of a sudden something happening that we weren't aware was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a consideration that we have to do because we're dealing with hiring and staffing data.
That's
and
right.
If you sort of put out a big enough data set, you can sort of trace, sort of a staffing process from start to finish, but you can get a NAPA that can sort of pull you back. Notice of appointment, sorry. Sometimes you get, but you can sort of trace back. So we work really closely with our ATIP office who are really, really, really strong in that regard. And we sort of take our data set, start here, and then sort of parse it down so to make sure, and then we try and go into the data set and try and identify one person. And if we can't do it among all of our experts in our organization, then we feel that it's fairly safe. And then even still, we take it through a really robust governance model. So it doesn't sort of just come to me and I say, yeah, it's great. We take it through a governance model that a lot of people take a look at it to ensure that we're treating the data set.
That's what I was trying to say. Our ATIP officers will become data scientists in the near
They'll have
future.
to.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
They can't just review documents, flat documents in paper or emails. They will start playing into the weeds with the data and start extracting patterns that are not necessarily seen at surface. This is going to be critical for us to release the right data and ensure that privacy is always guaranteed.
Thank you. So I just want to pull out a theme that I've been hearing across, and thank you for presenting sort of the it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? So we have technological solutions, we have manual solutions, and then I don't want to ignore you, Mohammed, but we also have a more technical solution that we haven't presented yet. So Mohammed, as I said, is an open government champion, but is also in charge of the API store. So I was wondering if you can, for us who are not in the know, just explain in lay terms what is an API and what does the API store do? Maybe a little bit of background on what's on there, as well as what one would use it for.
So what is an API? I try to explain it in Lego pieces. Look at APIs are components of software, black boxes with input and output. They do a service. So look at the APIs are pieces of Legos where when you assemble them, you integrate them, you can produce a piece of software that does something. The example we use usually is Expedia. Expedia does not store any data coming from the air carriers, the Air France, the Air Canada, and so on and so forth. When you go to Expedia, you have a flat page, you select certain criteria where you go in, et cetera, and when you hit, there are calls that are happening to the different carriers, and these different carriers expose what I was calling API. These pieces of software, they have a task to do is query their databases, retrieve a result, send it back to you. So all what Expedia does is sort out the results and then expose them to you. If you decide at some point to move forward to book your flight, then you will invoke other services, which are other APIs. What is out there right now? We do have, since April the 2nd, a production version of the Government of Canada API store on cloud. How many APIs we have right now? We have around 26 overall. I don't count the internal to the different departments' APIs, because the way we've built it is we've built it in a multi-tenant approach. There is the mothership, which is the Government of Canada big department or agency or organization can have their own shell. Look at it as a store where everyone will have their own shell and they can put their APIs in there. So I don't know how many APIs are on each tenant. I didn't count, so they can publish whatever they want. What was the last part of your question? Sorry.
Okay.
I have a buffer of
this
2
is great.
cases.
So, wonderful. I love the cases. So maybe that'll help explain it for did everyone follow? Let's just all nod yes. Okay, maybe everyone didn't follow. So let's go to some of these case studies. So we now understand what an API does, but what does it do for open government? How do what does this do for us in terms of our streamlining our publishing processes, opening up governments? Tell us what an API will do for that.
So how like we are evolving, IT is evolving, so as much as Open Data Portal is very important to publish CSV files, more and more people want to access real data, real-time data, live data, and they don't want to access it through flat files. They
That's
download, they put them on their whatever workstation and start working on them. They want to access them in programmatic way. Means I invoke the service, they get me the data, or they process something, because APIs are not only retrieve data, it's also offering a service. It could be I submitted data, it's processed, and it sends the results to me. So in which way it supports open government? First of all, it's immediate results, like you get fresh data on the go. You can build up multiple services when you have all these different APIs. Instead of, let's say you have Health Canada, you have CFIA, you have CBSA, different data sets related to food, for example. Instead of downloading 3 data sets and try to mix them together on your workstation, now you can write a program, a piece of software that will automatically go there, retrieve through their API the data about some food recalls, some food poisoning, or some whatever, and then mix them together and build an application that tells to the citizen, hey, be careful, this food, or I'm gonna think a little bit even farther with the Internet of Things. Imagine you have your fridge that knows what food you have inside, and it's connected to these different APIs through an application, and the moment you have something that was recalled, when you arrive home, you see on the LCD screen of your fridge saying, this piece of food, please throw it, it's dangerous. These are the type of things. And we can push farther. We can just publish normal data sets as much as we can put services that are more complex, GIS information, taxes information in the future if you want to monetize the taxes and allow people to retrieve, like process their taxes in their way, but leveraging CRA information. So there's so many ways to support the open government.
So I love the case studies. I like the practical things. I was wondering, so you've given us a really interesting case study, but I'm wondering if, so we have 26 data sets open on our API now, and I want to run down the line on this. If you have case examples or case studies of the data or the information that you've been releasing being used by either internal stakeholders, so internal to GC, or external stakeholders. So I think there'll be different stakeholders, because I believe for Karen, your stakeholders are mainly other governments. For Mark, your stakeholders are often or clients of your clients or GC folks.
Yep.
And then for FAC, it's going to be more public. I was wondering if you give us a case example of some time or of someone using the API or using the data or information that you release being used for helping their own work. So this is... Yeah.
So maybe to shift a little bit the concept versus like APIs versus data sets. The API, the moment you put it there are people consuming it. You can do analytics to find out who's using it, and we can do that through the portal. But it's not like I'm publishing this data set for that particular person. I'm publishing an API to access the data, and whomever accesses it will access it at the moment they access it. What are the cases we have currently, cases or APIs we have in the store? We have, for example, Transport Canada Vehicle Recalls API. Means anyone who wants to build an application, instead of going to Transport Canada website, but they want to have something on their device with notification, hey, this vehicle has had this and this recall, they can use that API. We have Health Canada, a few APIs about food recalls and some things around this. CFIA, we have another API that is very interesting, actually coming soon. It's currently in the store, but there are some negotiations with the big players. It's a border wait time. Everyone travels at least once a year to the States or coming back. One of our challenges is you travel, you don't know which point of entry you would like to take. I mean, imagine you're driving towards Sarnia, but you don't know what is the wait time. You can go to the website, but every time check it. Currently, CBSA is working with Microsoft, Bing, and Google to embed their API, like the information about the border wait time, directly in their mapping solution. Means tomorrow you'll have your cell phone, you're driving, and you'll see live the border wait time and potentially even get suggestion. Instead, you're maybe half an hour away from Sarnia, but you might want to go to Ogdensburg. It's a detour of an hour, but the wait time is there, 0 versus 2 hours at Sarnia. These are the type of information that will help people make decisions.
That's great. Thank you. I did not know that case was coming out. So that's wonderful to know. We'll all stay tuned on our Google Maps. Or our Bing Maps? Is there a Bing Map?
Both.
Okay. Any three of you, who wants to start?
You go, Karen. You haven't spoken in a
Well,
while. Go for it.
we've just launched, Justice Canada just launched the State of the Criminal Justice System dashboard. So it too is taking data from multiple sources, mostly external. There's only one internal source. And it is creating, it's created a dashboard, and on different, in different categories. It would be the first performance measurement for the criminal justice system. So you can query the system. You can ask questions with regards to Indigenous peoples who have been incarcerated, and then it will come out and it will give you the answers to that. So again, not my area of expertise. Super cool. Was just launched on May 30th, so I haven't had a chance to really play with it yet, but I think it is definitely going to be beneficial, not just to other levels of government here in Canada, but definitely to Canadians, to civil society organizations that are working with different groups, different marginalized people, to try and target what is the source of the problem and where are the problems that people are experiencing.
Okay, well, we have every 2 years we conduct something that's called I have to get it right here, it's Staffing and Nonpartisanship Survey. So it's a public service-wide survey, so it's about 150,000 sort of response, 100,000 responses. And we've done this for years. The survey of staffing, they've just added nonpartisanship to it in this most recent survey. And so typically what we had done, we've done the survey, we compile the results, and then we provide each individual department with their own report. Everybody sort of looks through it and then calls us saying we want more data. And so what the group did for this survey is they created an interactive visualization tool. So it was all created in-house at the Public Service Commission. It was all written in JavaScript, and it allowed departments to be able to go in and query their department, their question and responses to the other department, as well as compare it with like-sized departments or other departments or all the public service. And then, so that was sort of available on the Canada.gc PSC site. And we said, well, why don't we put it on Open Government? And so we worked really hard with TBS, the portal team at TBS, to create its own site. There's 21 or 22 different data sets that are associated with this. So people can actually go in and do their own research, and it comes up with a fully accessible graphic, so it can come in a pie chart or come in a bar chart. It also has the data tables below it, so that you can take it and pull it and put it right in a presentation, and away you go. So it really, and then if you're a really data savvy person, you can go in and pull off the flat file and put them all together and do whatever you want with it. And we've made all of this available on GitHub. And so you can go and take it and modify it to whatever you have in your organization. And it's reduced the number of queries that we get for our data quite a bit. But it also allows departments to sort of do whatever they want with it. They don't have to, ask us for data, compare their organization with such and such organization. They can go in and do it, and then, okay, that's not what I want to do, and they want to do something else, or I want to do it with the public service, or these 3 organizations. So it allows the department to sort of do whatever they want to do with it. So it's sort of a win-win on both sides. Mm-hmm. And then when we presented this at a webinar with Leslie,
full disclosure,
we had some folks from the academia test it and really thought that it was really interesting. And so previously wouldn't have had access to this data, even via the extranet. So we're actually meeting with one of the academics that we had on that webinar next week, and talking about sort of what else can we put out there, what else do they want to see. So it's led to some really good connections, and it's led to some really interesting thoughts from people outside of the public service as well.
If I may jump on that, actually, you touched a good point about discoverability. One of the challenges we have in the government is not that we don't have data sets or we don't have components or API to expose. They're all somewhere buried in different departments and different teams. One of the things we did through Open Data Portal, but also through the API store, is bring the discoverability. Like what I see in the API store, I like calling it the e-harmony of APIs. It's a place, truly it's a place where you go as a consumer, as a developer, you search for services and you see, is it available? And you match a producer of that API or that service with a consumer. Hadn't it been that type of platforms, I wouldn't even know that my colleague who sits beside me has a service I can leverage. That's definitely beyond the open data and open government overall. It's also this reusability and this discoverability that allows cost savings.
Yes.
Furthermore, by offering these type of services to Canadians, we're supporting the growth of the economy. Because instead of the government building these complex applications that take years to be built and take millions to be maintained, now you can build some granular services and allow people from outside to build complex services with them. The simple example we have is not from the government just yet, but the city of Ottawa, they didn't build any of the mobile apps you use for OC Transpo. All they did, they exposed APIs into their platform, and people from outside companies started building applications, mobile applications that people can use, make money out of it through advertisement or whatever means, but it just tells you how all this has trickle effects.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things, just before I
Go for it.
I can jump in again, you know? Is I think that's one of our long-term visions at the Public Service Commission, is really to have a very user self-service sort of driven way to have our open data presented, for the lack of a better term. We would really like the opportunity for somebody to say, okay, I want hiring and staffing data for, Moose Jaw, and they can go in and sort of just query that and get the necessary data that they want. Now, we're not there from an infrastructure point of view, and we have a lot of work to do, but that's sort of the longer term. That's where we would love to go, is have people do much more self-service, optimize our infrastructure and our technology so people can go in and get what they want, rather than just us put as much out there as possible. We really want people to get what they want, so they get value out of it.
Well, and that's what I like about your the story of the staffing and non-partnership survey and your tool, is that it and I know you didn't focus on this, but it did reduce your workload in terms of producing these reports, which were content heavy, as well as not necessarily what your stakeholders wanted, your clients. But it gives you time to do other things. It's a cost-saving approach here, not only for the private sector, but also for us. And so I really think it's an interesting story. But I do want to move on to Craig in terms of learning about what I'm presuming is your external stakeholders, so external to the GC, and how.
Your question landed a little differently for me than what it did my colleagues here, and I think one of the reasons why, and it's been a challenge as a champion trying to promote open government within the agency, is whenever I spoke to someone, they said, we already have that information out there. It comes back to the point that Mohammed is making. It's there. It's on our website. It's already out there. We have applications that they've described as Cadillac compared to unfortunately, the limitations that we have with our open government portal. So part of my challenge is to help them see the value added of taking information that's behind some of our existing public domain information and repackaging it or putting it in under the open government portal. The reason being is that they'll be able to see the links when they do a search in the open government portal across departments or agencies because of that factor that's built in there, whereas when somebody searches the FAC website, they'll only see the FAC point of view on whether it be Lyme disease, health issues, or any of those other things that we deal with. I also think, too, that your other question was around, do we know if people are using it? Because I get that as well as a champion. Why should I put all this effort into it? I'm already working on this. I'm already working on that. It's already online, the things I just said to you. And then they often ask, how many hits is it getting? What's happening with it? So I don't know for sure, but I do know that every now and then Lucas or someone from TBS will send me an email that says, hey, Craig, check this out. There's a student in such and such a place that wants to know a little bit more about this. So for now, we're actually getting people starting to reach out to us. We did get those anyway because of our public domain presence before, but now we're getting them from the portal perspective. I would have to say that the reason why we probably haven't received many to date is from an awareness perspective, both from the portal, from Treasury Board at large, but also from our content that's on there. And of course, no one could reach out to us, if you'll recall, we didn't have a lot there beforehand. Now that we're actually building a little bit of a critical mass in the portal, people are starting to find our stuff. It's promoting them to contact us for additional information. But one of the challenges that we do have as a champion is trying to get folks to convince them, not only is it good to have it on our own website with our own tool, it's also important to have it in the TBS portal. So I've been struggling with that a little bit as a champion. I don't know if my colleagues are as well, but it sounds like some of the things that you've been doing might help us link those pieces together.
Yeah, and it can help you even build these analytics. You don't need to wait until the user or the consumer from outside reached out. You can, on your admin console, check who is using and who is hitting in a good way or in a bad way. You can even decide based on too many hits. If you have a bot, for example, hitting your services from overseas, you want maybe sometimes to stop them or even ban them if you want to. But it's definitely, the information is at finger reach.
Great. So I want to launch off from where you are talking about external engagement or engagement with your stakeholders. So I know our stakeholders are all different, but so as I said, they're GC external. But I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your work in terms of external engagement. So like a key principle of open government is that governments need to engage and collaborate with the public, not only to inform them, but also to help make decisions about policy and programs. So like, for example, to help build our national action plan at Open Government, we consulted with over 10,000 citizens across Canada to help build that policy and to help build that directive and make these priorities for open government. And so I'm just wondering if, as we're talking about case studies and those users, either what are your plans to begin engaging, or what have been your engagement successes thus far, or even engagement challenges. So I know that I know a bit from Mark from our webinar. Spoiler, if you want to watch the webinar, you can as well. But maybe you can talk about it here for the benefit of everyone.
Sure. One of the key things that we recognized, and part of we implemented a pretty comprehensive open government implementation plan in just over a year ago. And one of the key aspects, so we had 4 objectives, and one of them was to engage to add value-added data and information. So as part of that, we launched what we call our online engagement plan. And so we kind of think of this as going to the Wizard of Oz and sort of being Dorothy and going around the expanding yellow brick road. And so we started really small. All we wanted to do was raise awareness that we had stuff on open government. First of all, internally to the Public Service Commission. So we went around and we did things like write blogs, and we had open houses, and we brought Treasury Board in, and we got people in a room, and we told them what we were doing and sort of the fun things. And then we started to write, newspaper things for our, internal briefing website. And then we launched a GC Connects page and invited everybody that we could ever see, including our mothers, to come and see and join our GC Connects page. And then we put everything on our GC Connects page, and we wrote blog after blog after blog, and just to try and tell as much as we could about what we were doing. And then we started to sort of reach out to things like the national managers community, and we would go out to INDEE, and I apologize if I got that wrong, and we would go out to as many different outreach avenues as we could, but not directly as open government. In the Public Service Commission, we have a bunch of different groups that go out and connect with people all the time. And so what we did is we did a piggybacking system. So we said, okay, you're going out to national managers community to talk about, I don't know, the new direction in staffing. So we said, okay, can we throw a web or a slide in the back of your presentation that talks about open government? And then they said, sure. Or our staffing support advisors, they were going out to talk about all the departments. And so we said, okay, can we give you a slide and some speaking points on what we're doing? Yeah. When they went out to INDEE, we gave them things like, here, we have 4 data sets on employment equity. What do you think? Tell us what you think. Do you want more data sets? What do you think of our data sets? Are they in the right format? Do you want them in a different format? And we just selfishly just sort of went out and just went berserk. And over the first couple of years of open government, the first 3 or 4, I think we got 2 questions or 3 questions through the open data portal, and they were sort of, one of them was like, yeah, this is great. And then since we started our campaign in September, we've had over 14 questions, and really good questions. Some of them were 2 pages long with, we want to see this data in this format, can you do this, can you do that? And if you go to our GC Connects page, you can see all the questions and all the answers. We publish them so that anybody can sort of feed off of those questions and our answers, and we go in and we bring that back to our data teams and say, here, this is what people want, and can we build this into our next open data set? So it's been fairly successful. So our next challenge is to sort of go out beyond the public service and try and engage private citizens, civil society, on what they are using our data sets for and what they want to see from us. And that's sort of where our next challenge lies. And so we're sort of right at that cusp of going out where it's not comfortable, because it's comfortable inside. It's easy. It's a lot, it's colleague to colleague. Going outside is a little bit more challenging.
I'm going to pick on someone. Mohammed, how do you tell people about the API store?
So I was just to say, maybe in the first phase of the API store, keep in mind the API store project started in June last year, and it was in prod in April, so it was quite aggressive as a project. So in that period of time, we did more internal outreach. We kind of selected some early adopters, 5 or 6 departments who were really interested to experiment with this store. We're now expanding more and more, and actually we're happy to see, without any marketing, that there are agencies and even provinces that are reaching out because they're interested in leveraging the store. It's almost gonna, at some point, that's my dream, we're gonna move from Government of Canada API store to public services marketplace or something like that.
Very excited.
Yeah, that's truly this, because at the end of the day, what is the purpose of this store? It should be done in a citizen-centric versus we are a government offering a service. A citizen doesn't care if they deal with municipality or province or territory or GC or whatever. What they deal is, I need to renew my license plate. I don't care is it province or not. Well, we want to bring services to them that allow them to, from their little seat at home, they do something and they don't have to carry, it's transparent to them. So the outreach we've done so far, as I said, is more the early adopters. TBS helped us a lot into the road shows across the Government of Canada, and as I said, the demand is coming. What we are planning to do is go out to the externals. The areas we want to do is, for example, industry days, where we don't want to build services without knowing what type of services people need outside. And the challenges we're having, and I spoke with my colleagues here, we don't have resources to build all those APIs and so on and so forth. So first of all, we'd like to do some industry days where we bring people from the internal to public services, but also from the industry. Example, let's say we talk about food. We're going to bring the big players in the food industry, the grocery stores, the Sobeys, the Walmarts, and the big producers. And for example, we're going to bring CFIA, CBSA, Health Canada, and have a focus day where we make these people talk and understand what do you need or what don't you need, what can you offer and what you need to offer, but you don't have the means to offer it. Post that, we consolidate all the information that these people are capable of offering or not capable, or at least they need, and then we can run some hackathons post that. And hackathons could be students, but could be also industry people come in to develop those services that the internal service, the internal public services can't provide due to budget issues or resources or knowledge sometimes. Build those services and put them directly to the store. So these type of outreaches will require lots of collaborations amongst all of us, public services, also in the industry, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Wonderful. So exciting. So exciting. Karen?
Yeah, it is exciting. It is really exciting. And I think it's exciting that we're recognizing the value of reaching out to citizens and civil society and bringing them in to the solution process. And it's not necessary, I don't think this is new. I think government departments and institutions realize that that was the way to go. I mean, we recognize it's a democracy. I know at Justice Canada, we had very successful consultations and engagements that led to the medical assistance in dying legislation, for instance. And we saw the benefits then with regards to the amount of ATIP requests we had on that highly controversial subject. I think there were 2 because it was such a transparent consultative process. But we're even moving beyond that now, and I know for Justice Canada, the recent global summit and the work we were doing with have and continue to do with the Open Government Partnership really just broadened our horizons. And when the OGP, TBS, and the Ministry of Justice from Argentina, and Pathfinders, the Task Force on Justice, a civil society organization very focused on justice issues and justice reform, came to us in the fall and asked us to support continuing discussions that had started in Tbilisi, Georgia at the previous Global Summit on access to justice and justice reform. We were kind of like, oh, okay, I guess. Sounds like a good idea. But it has taken us down a path citizen-centric. That is the type of justice system that people are looking for, not just in developing countries, but here in Canada. And it's going to take strong collaboration with each other, with all levels of government, and with civil society. But if we have data and information that relates, in our case, to the justice system, and we push it out, it will enable citizens and organizations that have a lot of money to contribute to some of the solutions. And it's definitely the way forward. In my opinion, it's definitely the way forward.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your Open Doors event at the summit? I don't even know the outcomes. I don't think we've spoken since then. So I would love to hear if you have just some preliminary.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I have to say, my whole experience, and hats off to TBS, those things are not easy to organize, especially when you have change in leadership a couple of times, and especially with the international requirements. I know you guys work closely with Global Affairs, but it was an incredible experience for me personally. I've never attended a global summit, I've never sat at a table and talked about issues that we have here in Canada with people from other countries, from developing countries, truly listened to their perspectives and had them listen to ours. It was fabulous. Our Open Doors at Justice event was a side event. We held it at Justice Canada. It was the first time that we opened the doors to our headquarters building, and so we opened our library. It's a beautiful space in the atrium that's just outside the library. And we welcomed over 100 participants. So we had a combination of Global Summit participants, civil society organizations, the public, a grade 12 law class from Glebe Collegiate, and their teacher came.
Great.
And we started with just 3 lightning talks from different folks about their experiences with the Open Government and the Open Government Partnership, and then we moved into 2 discussions. The first was on access to justice. We had the Minister of Justice from Sri Lanka join us, and for her delegation to share their thoughts and experiences. It was incredible. And our last discussion was on privacy. So the discussions were truly engaging, and certainly the contacts that we made, relationships that we have, that we will continue to build. And interestingly enough, some of the pointed questions that would be difficult for public servants to answer are not so difficult for civil society to answer. And that in and of itself is a great reason to partner. There are 2 sides to most coins, and so sometimes it's really important to listen to all of those perspectives. So I don't know if that answered your question,
Yeah,
but it was
no,
fabulous as far as I'm concerned.
Wonderful. I wasn't trying to plug anything. Craig, do you want to, so we were chatting about external engagement. So you were saying that I know that you said you haven't been doing it much, but maybe do you want to talk about some of your plans or what you've been doing with comms?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about what we were doing, but it sounds a lot the same place where you are, Mark. I mean, don't forget there was nothing happening on Open Government at Public Health Agency a year and a half ago before I started on the file. It was very, very minimal. So the majority of our engagement's been internal. It's been with senior management, me going on a regular basis to our executive committee with the deputy chairing that committee to brief them on where we are, keeping track of the numbers. Also working closely with our colleagues at Treasury Board for various different Twitter campaigns and writing blogs for them and different things like that, having them come in, setting up awareness sessions. We ran at least 4 or 5 last year, but the primary focus of the work that we've done from an engagement perspective has been within the agency, knowing full well that there's a need and a desire from the public already for our information. I want to make sure that I can get our folks internally on board for them to start seeing the benefits and the value of using the actual TBS portal and the spirit behind Open Government. I think they were doing it, as I've said, and then one of the things I found that no matter who I speak to about Open Government, everyone's fully on board. No one ever disagrees, whether they be internal or external. They all support it 100%. It then into the nitty-gritty about how and when and you know where we're going to find time to do that. One of the things I want to do as I move forward, and this is hopefully to eliminate some of those questions as we go down the road, is build it into the front end of the work that people are doing. Get there as they start to mock up the data. Get there as they start to mock up the work that they're doing that will end up being, I don't know, the Chief Public Health Officer's report at the end of every 3 months. Why don't we build that into the front end so they're not ticking a box when it goes to be published online? They actually know from that incubation stage that's going to end up somewhere in the public domain, and there should end up as well on the Open Government portal. But our engagement has really been internal, haven't done a lot outside. Going to start looking at that as we move forward, but I still believe there's a lot of work to do internally within the agency to continue to either A, show the benefits of putting it out there, or B, just getting people on board.
I think if you do that internally, I think what it does is it's sort of exactly what you said. It sort of sets the stage for everybody. So when you come in to have a conversation about, okay, you're going to create that document, well, let's create it with open government in mind. From content creation. People say, they don't sit there and go, what's open government? They go, oh yeah, that's right, we have this, we're going to publish it. You know, it sort of just allows people to sort of accept the reality of open government a little bit more than trying to sort of shove it down their throat, for the lack of a better term. I think internal awareness really creates that culture shift and that culture change to be more open by default.
Starts to align some of the resources differently as well. That's been one of our big challenges, is internally our folks in IT or in comms, as you asked, you know, are already swamped with a bunch of other things to do. So we need to start thinking about how can we build products that will be easier to put in the public domain from the very onset, rather than producing something that will be the traditional report that gets printed in a hard copy and sits on a shelf. There's still a lot of work to do on that in a scientific-based organization like the one that we're in.
Okay, so we have we have 2 more minutes before we switch to question period, and so I have sort of a last question. We've talked a lot about open data and the publishing process. We've talked a lot about engagement and all these different parts of open government. But so we have an audience here in the room of mainly Government of Canada public servants, but in our members and also online, we probably have a lot of JC folks, but there's also people from the public, so people from the nonprofit sector, academics, industry, as well as probably other levels of government here. And so just a last question to end us off. What would you like to see from both either internal and external stakeholders? What can they do? What do you suggest that they can do to help build a more effective open government? So, like, for example, what can we do at the working level, whether or not we're in government or outside of government? What do we expect from leaders, for example? Or what can we, I think this is an interesting thing about engaging citizens, what can we reasonably ask them to do? Or how do we get them more involved? It's a lot of questions, I apologize. But
we have 2 minutes.
Just, I mean, you don't have to answer all of them. I'm just thinking, like, if you had a one.
Can it be a wish?
Yes, I love those pie in the sky questions. So
like for me, if you guys don't mind me going first,
Please.
one of the things I would like is for people to, I guess, release or let go of that whole concept of being afraid of putting things out there. You know, it happens at every level, and no matter what I do. I told you all that people support the concept of open government. They always come back to, we're not ready to put that out there yet. It's not finished yet. Or, oh my goodness, someone's going to piece that together with something there and something there and something. I'd like to put it out there and ask for forgiveness afterwards. I think we are overly cautious with the information and data that we want to put online, and we sit on it so long that by the time we get around to doing it, it becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, I would echo that. Like, I think one of the big things and one of the drivers behind what I would call our success at the PSC is that we have a deputy that's like that, and he says, you know, we want to keep, you know, privacy and security and everything in consideration. Yeah. Yes. But there's no, you know, let's take a risk and put it out, and we'll probably most of the time be okay. You know. We think that we have a tendency to sort of hold things really close to the vest, and we think that the work that we're doing is really crucial to absolutely everybody in the world. And the reality is that it may be to some, but we can release more and we can take a little bit more risk. So I agree, and I think if I was to speak to senior managers and executives, I think that don't be afraid to sort of through your due diligence, put the processes in place so that you're ensuring the quality, you're ensuring security is taken care of, you're ensuring the risk is looked at, but don't be afraid to take that risk and put something out there.
So if I recall, you had asked a few questions. So I echo my two colleagues have been saying. We need to risk manage the data publication or the service publication versus saying we close the doors. Because security by closing doors is not security. It's just prison, if I may say. In terms of engaging citizen, it's definitely something we don't publish data or services for the sake of publishing them. We need to understand what are they going to be using. So we need to do more outreach to them. In terms of, that was another part I'm trying to remember.
What can we ask reasonably for citizens and stakeholders? What can we ask from them?
Oh, so I was to talk about two things. First of all, we have policies, and most of our people hide behind policies, saying, "Oh my God, I'm bound by policy. I can't change it." Most of the time, when you start looking at the policy, we overprotect, as Mark was saying. Like if I imagine this table as the playground, most of our policy guys are going to tell you you're allowed to play just in the center of the table. And the truth is that you have way more flexibility, even in the current policy, to publish services and publish data. But beyond, era is changing, citizens are changing, we have different population. The youngsters now care less about the privacy than the way we. Their demands are way more in terms of government transparency, and it's maybe time for us to look at the policies we have. Not that we're going to take years to revise them and write them in a bulletproof way, but maybe write them in a more iterative way. Like ask for forgiveness, as Craig was saying, build maybe imperfect policies and improve them over time, as long as we react very, very quickly to adjust them as we find out issues.
Interesting.
So,
Final.
I get
Here's
the
Justice.
last.
Well, we're getting questions after.
Justice gets the last word.
Okay, so for citizens, I would ask them to be patient. Governments are dependent on public opinion. Their opinion is important, so I would ask them to be patient. It's a big organization, the Government of Canada, a huge elephant. It takes time for change to happen. And the other thing I would ask them to be is not critical. It's okay to note when something has not happened the way it should happen or when mistakes have occurred, but be part of the solution and not just solely critical. I believe that our citizens are more informed. I believe they are more demanding than ever before, and I believe that that is all great for everyone. But if we're going to get to a place where it is a true democracy and we're working together, it is going to take trust and forgiveness on both sides and citizens. So I think if we work together, I'm really optimistic about the future.
Great. On that optimistic note, we're open for questions. So we have the slide up here, as well as we're open for questions in the room. Vous pouvez poser des questions en français ou en anglais. Il y a les traductions disponibles. But as I see on Slido, most of the questions are in English, and you're free to answer, this panelists are free to answer in whichever language you prefer. Sorry, my eyes are not very good. Let's go with our top-rated question here. Has Justice thought about sharing their open government publishing process on GC Colab, GC Connects? It would be helpful for other departments and agencies.
Yes, so it's there. It's there, and the other, we have shared. Anyone who has asked us, any agency or department who has asked us, I think we've briefed 7 to date. We brought them in, we showed them our application and where it's linked on our intranet site. And certainly if you just send us an email, we can follow up with that. But the information is all there, and we're more than happy to share.
Wonderful. So I think this second question we've addressed a little bit, but maybe anyways, how are you addressing some of the privacy and security issues around sharing data? So I feel like we chatted about this already, but if you have anything to add or just want to, or maybe just to summarize.
I just think with this one here, it's important to have a good governance in place to take a look at your data and make sure that you're putting the right eyes on the data to make sure that you're looking at it from a privacy and security point of view, but not overly so, like we sort of talked about at the end there, is that I think we just need to have the right considerations, and are we not publishing it because it's a true privacy or security risk, or just because we feel a little uncomfortable about putting something out that we haven't done before? So that's how we handle it, is we just have a really good governance in place to take a look at it.
And we're starting to build it into some of our agreements that we have with the provinces and territories as well, starting to have conversations there. In fact, some of the provinces are ahead of the federal government with regards to open government, so it's not like we're running into people who don't support the concept. It's building it into those agreements, I think, is a big piece that we're going to have to work on as we move forward.
Great. This is
Translation. Yeah.
Translation costs, no budget. How can we fix this?
Google Translate.
Well,
It's a big topic.
as is accessibility,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
right? Everybody sort of hangs it on
Yeah.
the poor official languages folks. Like, we love official languages. We all support that. But the issue is also with accessibility. This is what we are in Canada, so we do have to figure this one out.
I think the accessibility.
There are solutions.
Yes, there
Definitely
are.
solutions are there. I know, for example, PSPC is working on a new platform for self-service for translation. I mean, cost is going to be there for sure, unless if you want to do translation internally in your department. But if you're looking at the official translation, PSPC is putting in place a new platform that allows workflow for you to track your translation request from the beginning up until it comes back automatically translated and charged back. Now, you can do the same thing in your department. If you can't afford having this, you can leverage all these solutions that are available right now in the cloud on Google, Amazon, etc. But still, but it didn't cost. You have human review. It cost.
Yeah, and I build in open government incidents and create the language for bit accessibility. It eliminates that. So you just said, doing a report that's going to be 150 page report at the end, a signed report or whatever. Build it in front end and you create translation and cost of the project. It's just the business. We're in the country, we need to produce things in both official languages. It's just sort of the cost of doing business. Now, the one that I think that is actually similar to this, but probably more difficult to understand where the impact is the accessibility piece. Because I mean, if you think about a simple deck, how many people build visualizations and pictures and charts and graphs into a deck? And if we're putting that as an accessible piece on open government, there are a lot of different changes that have to be done to that deck, or the deck itself has to be modified. So, and there are few and far between people that know how to do that work. So, translation is something that we have a service for. We can pay for it. We can set it off, get it back, etc. Accessibility is one that I think that people will have to learn. There's going to have to be a lot of internal learning. There's going to have to be a lot of coaching. There's going to have a lot of teaching. And then there's going to be a QA process so that we don't put something out there that we think is accessible and is not. Especially now that it's soon to be law, right? I mean, the Accessibility Act has been passed. So I think that's the one that I think is going to cause more headaches in terms of trying to figure out how we do that appropriately versus translation. I think translation is just to build it into the project.
Right, and I think this maybe answers one of our lower down questions. So how are we ensuring that both Francophone and Anglophone communities are equally engaged through open government initiatives? And I think this is we're ensuring that we're providing the services in both English and French. Our engagement activities are bilingual, that we're creating all of these materials, and that budget is built in early. And this is sort of like a theme in open government in general, is that if we're building in what we want the end result to be in at the beginning, then there's no surprises at the end and no unnecessary or no budget surprises at the end.
Right. I think with that one, again, the more significant issue when you're talking about communities are remote communities and marginalized communities. And that's where connectivity, for instance, could be an issue, right? If you were asking me for my dream for open government, it would center on connectivity, that coast to coast to coast, regardless of how remote the community was, that they would be connected to online services and information. So yeah, I think Francophone and Anglophone, that is who we are. It's in the fabric of our country. But those other remote and marginalized communities are a consideration.
So I'm interested in this question because I know a little bit of the answer from some other departments, but how do you get around the ownership issue? So I think this is maybe directed towards Craig, but how do you, if you don't own the data but you want to publish it, I heard earlier where you've been doing it as information. If it's already in the public domain, then you're just repackaging it and repurposing it. But have you found, or has anyone else found any other solutions? I know of one that I'll chat about, but I'll wait for you guys.
We haven't found a solution for it other than what I mentioned earlier, which was to build it into our agreements as we move forward, because this is a little bit of only a year and a half into it. So now as we gather new information or new data from various different people who doesn't necessarily belong to us, we'll make sure we're asking at the front end and making them aware of the fact that we're going to repurpose it and use it where possible. I mean, it's linked to privacy as well, but it's all this whole concept around build it in from the moment you sit down and start working on something. The same way we build in human resources, official languages, accessibility, all of that. Open government should be a part of, and I believe we should be building into TV subs. You're requesting money, build it into the TV sub. Let's see how we can get this a part of the process as it works through. It should be a part and parcel of every piece of work that we're
To add to it is right now lots of departments don't even know who owns which data they have. So one of the things that we need to find out as we work is have cataloging of our data and some lineage and traceability of data to the attribute level. Who owns that data? Once you figure out who owns that data, at least you can now put a person or an entity behind. You can reach out and see how we can publish this or how we can use this outside of maybe the initial aim. So the challenge we have is we don't know what we have and we don't know who owns what we have.
Well, I'd argue as a taxpayer that they own it or we own it, so they should have access to it. I mean, that's the approach that I take on it. Proper stewardship of the Canadian taxpayer dollars. If we've paid for this work to be created, tip it anyway, and maybe redacted, but at least it should be out there.
True, and this is where we tie it to the policies.
That's right.
Departments and entities collected data, although it's public data, they collected it for a purpose. So you go talk to stats, they will tell you, I'm sorry,
I didn't collect it for that purpose.
Exactly. Right. So these are the type of challenges we'll be facing more and more, and we have to think about them as a government.
And if I were to put on my ATIP hat, there's a reason for that, right? It was to protect citizens themselves. That it could only be collected for a single purpose, and it's under each mandate, and each institution can only use the information and data they collect for to support their mandate. So again, that's part of the being patient part of it. We need to figure that out. The Access to Information Act, Privacy Act, they need to be reviewed, and we need to figure out how to move forward, I think, in a way that is going to be in the best interest, not just of government, but of Canadians as well.
Yep. Great.
I think we have to prioritize our data as well. Coming back to that first question about lots of information out there, but not a lot of clean data.
Yes.
It comes back to Mark's point. I think Karen and Mohammed talked about it as well. Let's not just increase the numbers or our presence in the portal. We have to be strategic about what types of information we want to put out there. That will allow us then to clean up what we're putting out there rather than just dumping it and increasing our presence.
Do we have any questions in the room? There are 2 mics if you want to approach. I realize that
I'm just going to add one point
burning
to
through a slideshow.
Answer. I will maybe take a tangent, although we need to clean our data as a government because it's important. Crap in, crap out. If you want to offer good digital services, you need to have good data. Sometimes some dirt is good because the dirt allows you to extract some insight. What is going wrong in my data, and or what is the exception in that data that will allow me potentially from a policy perspective or from targeting a service perspective to find the right thing to do to, if we talk about these special communities or something like that, dirt in data, sometimes cleaning data sometimes skims the exceptions. And if you skim the exceptions, you lose that piece of information. So although we want to clean our data as much as possible, sometimes it's good to keep some dirt.
Okay, I'm a fan. So this question is for Justice. What technology is Justice Canada or other departments, I guess everyone can answer, using to automate their publishing process? So I believe you talked about something already in terms of your approvals and your fast track and your slow track.
Right.
But is there anything else or anything else anyone else wants to add?
I can add a bit on open information and what we did there, because it's another question up there for folks who can't read it. So for the data process and publishing open data, we just follow the traditional process. It's all hydraulic, like was spoken about. But for open information, keep in mind we had nothing in the open information portal. But the quick way to get that, and everybody can leave here today and increase your presence on the open information portal very easily. All I did was I worked with our CIO, received his delegated authority, because this information, keep in mind, was already in the public domain. I approached him, I approached the owners of the information, the vice presidents, and said, look, you already have it out on a website. I would like to now take it and move it into the open information portal. Do you agree to delegate your signing authority on that for me as champion of open government? They all agreed, and behind the scenes, we hired a student, and we worked on populating a hydraulic form to do the metadata sheets so that it would end up in the open information portal. And anybody can do that. It's very simple. It didn't put any extra effort on the owners of the actual information or data at all. We did it behind the scenes. In fact, we've become a little bit of a victim of our own success, because we've been able to increase that on our own. What we're doing right now is we're working with comms to make sure that if they're about to put something online, they're letting us know. What I'd like to be able to do is build it in electronically like you've done,
Right.
and so that when a client reaches out to comms to say we'd like to put this report online in a month's time, that there's actually a box where they tick off and go, and simultaneously we'd like it to go into the portal.
And that's what we've done.
We haven't found an owner in my agency for someone who agrees to take that responsibility for moving it into the open government or open information portal. It's falling to me still as a champion, and part of my work moving forward next year will be, as we refer to it, systematizing that. So I can leave at any time, step down as champion, and that will be able to run on its own. That's really what I'd like to be able to do.
We've done it a little bit differently. We publish some research reports. So we recently published, EE promotion rate study, and we've also published a anonymized recruitment study. And we took a sort of a little different road. We said, though, we published that externally so everybody could see it. But as we all know, we're government. We go around and we do sort of a little bit of a dog and pony show when we do something like that. So what we did is we took the presentations that they did on those reports and published those presentations as open information, because it was really quick and easy. They were already approved by everybody in the Pope, and they were generally in both official languages. All that needed was a little bit of accessibility work, and sort of, there you go, you're done, and put it up on the portal. So that's how we've started to push the open information envelope level, is take something that's already done. There are other products that it's not duplication of work. We're not putting the same thing in two different places, but we're sort of putting other things that are related but maybe a little bit more strategic. Somebody can maybe get some better points or different points in a different way. So that was some of the things that we've been doing.
So we have one more. We have two related questions here. So there's a question, how can you persuade private corporations to get on board with aiding open government since they are more for profit? And then the second question, how do you control people monetizing the data as is openly out there? Should we be concerned with this? Should we be controlling this? So they're sort of opposite questions, actually. But I was wondering if, I would think that Mohammed might have something to say on this. I personally don't think monetizing is not an issue for me, but.
Personally, exactly. Why am I going to be concerned? The only concern I have, if people are finding a way to monetize it, it's maybe because my services are not at the quality that is expected. Because if you pick a citizen out there or a user, you give them a free service and a paid service, this one being at the same quality, I will definitely pick the free one. Mm-hmm. Only one reason I will do the paid if this one sucks. So it's up to us then to up our quality of services we deliver. This way people will choose to come over here. Now, the flip side of the coin is we as government will be publishing small services, granular services that retrieve data or provide some basic services. If there is a company out there that will amalgamate all of this to provide a more mature or a more complex service, then be it. Mm-hmm. That's actually, it's good for us because government will focus on delivering those granular services in the quality that is expected and let the economy drive. As I said, the example I was using before was City of Ottawa don't build the mobile apps for OC Transpo, they just publish the APIs to access the data.
Yeah. And I mean, our vision at TBS is that private industry is one of our stakeholders, and that we're releasing open data and using and open information for their benefit as citizens and stakeholders in Canada. So I'm not so concerned with that. But does anyone have anything else to add? Okay, so we have 4 minutes left, and we would like you to fill out our evaluation. But I do want to thank our panelists, Mohammed, Karen, Mark, and Craig, for joining us today and sharing all their clean and dirty data, and for talking about a wide variety of topics, digging in deep into their open government work, sharing how they're doing engagement across sectors, as well as and trying to expand that and continually improving. And so thank you for your work, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Round of applause. Thank you. And I have official comments here. So on behalf of the school, I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of this discussion. And then I would also like to invite our online guests, as well as the on-site guests, that's the word I'm looking for, to fill out that evaluation. So the QR code is on the tables here, or you can scan your QR code on your computer, or use this link here to fill that out. Other than that, I think we're at an end. So thank you so much for joining us, and maybe we can hang out a little bit if people have questions or follow-up. Sure. Thanks so much. And another